Good evening, sports fans, and welcome to the All Balls Sports Show, a discussion of any and all sports, local, regional, and national. And now, here are your hosts, Dan James, Eddie Bobo, Ty Cobb, and the coach, Vance Ballou.
Thank you, Bill Jones. Welcome into the All the Ball Sports Show for this Wednesday, October 16th, 2019. And we happen to have in the house two of my favorite people. Well, actually, three of my favorite people.
Good recovery.
One of my favorite people.
Two of your favorite people and me?
No. And Maurice Patton, sports editor for the Daily Herald. And someone who's going to be inducted tomorrow evening into the Columbia Central High School Athletic Hall of Fame. Ladies and gentlemen, Vance Ballou.
Oh, you're too kind. Too kind.
We do know a celebrity or two.
Yes, we do.
Oh.
Absolutely.
You're pushing it too far now.
Never, ever. But that's a great honor for you.
Yeah, it is. I'm thrilled. I never dreamed that it would come about, and especially not this early. It's just such an honor. There's so many all outstanding men and women that are in the Hall of Fame and will be tomorrow night, and the second class, and then the classes to come. It's just an honor to be included in that group.
Give you a rundown of who else you're being inducted with. It's going to be Lee Claiborne, 44 years at Central High School.
That is really rare, and becoming more rare that somebody stay.
Bernard Childers, NCAA executive director.
Yes, outstanding careers. I mean, you think about all the athletic programs he's in, had a hand in and played a part in their development through the years. It's just amazing career there.
Robert Elliott Sr., one of the players on the 1952 team that will also be recognized tomorrow night and inducted into the Hall of Fame because of their efforts with a complete 11-0. And at that time, the Litkenhouse ratings were what got you into the state championship. And E.E. Litkenhouse was the gentleman from the Nashville Banner that from 1941 until probably the late 50s is how the state championships were decided.
Yeah, that was before the playoffs, but I was unaware of the person behind that name. That's interesting.
Now, I have forgotten something to remember E.E. Litkenhouse. So something between now and 7 o'clock tonight that I've absolutely forgotten, so don't go there. But Robert Elliott Jr., his son, is going to accept for him tomorrow night. Also, Lee Fowler, big basketball star back in 1970. Jack Van Hooser, Richard LeMay, and Billy Potts, who is also on the 1952 team. Willie Wyatt, very deserving.
Right.
And also has the gym at Whitthorne Middle School named after him. And, of course, the 1952 team is going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. So a couple of three members that are still remaining with that team will be there.
Yeah, that's outstanding, and great to see that team be honored that we've all heard so much about through the years, and those players as well. I've heard stories just through the years about all of them's outstanding accomplishments, and so it's a big night ahead.
But I'll let you in on a little secret. When I got the information, it said 1952 team, state championship. That's all I was given. And I'm thinking, I need to go see Mo Patton and see if I can find some stuff down at the Daily Herald and do some research. But as luck would have it,
and thank goodness,
because he and I borrowed off this thing, the Rob Elliott packet included a description of 1951, 52, and 53 of the Nashville Tennessean, Banner, and Daily Herald headlines of all those games.
That is
and
interesting.
subsequent pictures.
It was really impressive.
Yeah,
Right.
it was. Somebody
I
really
don't know
worked very
who
hard
put
to do
that together, but it looked like it was put together not long after those 3 seasons, and like you said, it was just a compilation of everything. It looked like every article that had been done on them, and hopefully somebody will have that at the festivities tomorrow for folks to kind of take a look at if they'd like. I don't know how many others of it there are, so you might have to kind of be careful with it. But it was really impressive. A lot of information in there.
A lot of information. So the way I'm going to present it will be taken basically directly from that
Wow.
that compilation of all those stories, and
That's great.
I was like, I hit the mother lode.
There you go. Exactly. Jackpot.
That is.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Thank you, God.
Yeah, thank you. So anyway, the festivities start tomorrow night, 6 o'clock, and we'll start with dinner. I was going to say dinner on a show, but not.
You're the show.
No,
Dan's
no,
the
no,
show.
Dan is the show.
That's right.
Exactly.
As
He's
always.
just MCing.
I'm
There
just
we go.
MCing, thank you. Yeah, MC Dan, thank you very much. But little thing from the band tomorrow too is going to be injected in all of this, and it's going to be kind of neat.
Oh, great.
I don't know how this is going to come off, but we're going to do it.
There you go.
Yeah. So anyway, start
Do something even if it's wrong.
Exactly.
That's right.
6:45ish or so is when we start the induction ceremony. So that'll be kind of cool. Congratulations to you. Very well deserved, man.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Not a problem. What happened to your Bravos? We get to game 5, and it's like we just threw.
You
we threw
know,
a bomb into the middle of Atlanta Stadium.
you know, I didn't realize we were going to talk about this when you asked me to come on. Because if I had, I would have turned it down.
Maurice, it's kind of like the team I was on in Babe Ruth baseball when I was 13. If you looked at our roster,
That was some time ago.
if you looked at our roster back then and everybody else's rosters, athletically on paper, we were the best team out there. We would start out winning every game and get down to the last 2 innings and find a way to lose it.
Well, the Braves didn't even wait till the last 2.
No, that last game, they lost in the
But
first
tell
inning.
you were covering Santa Fe. You were covering
Yeah, I
Gentlemen in
was down in Winchester,
Yeah.
fortunately, at Willowbrook Golf Club, catching the final round of the small class state championships that E.J. Hill, the senior from Santa Fe, was participating in. Finished 15th. Congratulations to E.J. Shot a 2-day 158. So that's typically one day for me, but but no.
Eddie and I.
No. He went down there and played really well, and congratulations to him. But no,
Yeah, we do.
but no. As I was trying to get somewhere to see the game, I'm getting packed up and checking it out, and it's 1-0, and then it's 4-0, and then it's 6-0, and all of a sudden it's 10-0, and it's still in the first inning, and I'm like, I don't need to be in no hurry. I don't need to see this, you know. So, yeah.
It only got worse from there.
Yeah.
But being the consummate Braves fan that you are, what was your emotional state when you finally found out the final score?
Well, by the time I found out the final score, I mean, it was you know, yeah, oh, absolutely. I mean, you ask Vance, you'd rather lose a game 13-1 than 3-2 and them score in the bottom of the 7th. I mean, you know, because you just sit there and you pick that 1-run game apart. You know, you get to be 13-1, give up 10 in the first. You know, it's quick and painless. I mean, it was just it's just getting through that other 8 innings afterwards.
And then last
But you know.
night, and I love how somebody described this on Facebook this morning. The guys with the Walgreens W on their caps,
Yeah.
were the ones who win.
Well, and that was a little sweet revenge if you're a Braves fan too, because I mean, you know, it wasn't so bad the loss to St. Louis. It was, you know, Well, not just how you lost, but what took place afterwards. There was a little mouthiness and that kind of thing, and there's a video on social media that probably shouldn't have gotten out of the St. Louis clubhouse with their manager kind of making some comments that he's probably going to regret for some time. And I think any Braves fan that might have felt a little even keeled towards St. Louis before that didn't afterwards. I mean, and it's something that's going to linger, I think. So a bunch of Braves fans were Nationals fans unexpectedly over this last series, I think. Yeah. So
Interesting.
yeah.
Well, thanks to heavy rain in New York, Game 4, the 2019 ALCS between the Houston Astros and the New York Yankees was postponed for Wednesday. The game will be made up for Friday, so games 4 through 7 will now be played on 4 consecutive days.
Yeah, that travel day that they had built in there suddenly isn't a travel day. Assuming it gets to that point, Houston leads 2-1. So, I mean, they could still win it in New York. So,
your opinion of who plays the Nationals?
I feel pretty good about the Astros. I think the Yankees have done a great job this year. They've dealt with a lot of injuries, but I just think Houston has just been, from post to wire, probably the best team over there. Now, having said that, I've not paid a whole lot of attention to them or any of the other 29 teams. I've been so wrapped up in the Braves all year, but I am. That Astros team, and I followed them a little bit more before Tony Kemp got traded earlier this year, but they've really done a great job down there, put together something special, and I'd like to see them in the Nationals just because I think they got a better chance of beating the Nationals, and that's all I'm in it for at this point. If the Braves can't win it, I don't want anybody else over there to win it either.
That's not.
Well,
no, it's not. No, it's not.
But in his defense, Astros used to be a National League team.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
So,
But no, the Nationals, if they were to win a World Series, would just be insufferable. And being in the same division with the Braves and everything else, it'd really be tough to take. So,
So,
With that being said, what do the Bravos look like for next year?
it's a good question because
depends
You
on
know-
how many of them stay together.
well, Brian McCann announced his retirement at the end of the
Really?
that night. Yeah, he said he was done, and I think a lot of people were glad to see him be able to finish it up where he started it. An Atlanta native, played his high school ball there in Atlanta, came up through the system, 7-time All-Star, most of those with the Braves, did a great job over there. So he's gone. You don't know what's going to happen with Josh Donaldson, the third baseman who was there on a 1-year deal. Nick Markakis, another Atlanta native, may be done or maybe somewhere else. Julio Teheran is probably going to be somewhere else. So they're going to look a little different. And it'll it's kind of a wait-and-see situation, I think.
so how far away are they from winning the World Series?
Depends on which team shows up. I think they could have won it this year if they had played, not just played better. They had some injuries down the stretch. They weren't able to put their best team on the field, I don't think, in the postseason with Charlie Culberson being out, with Johan Camargo being out. Ender and Ciarte wasn't healthy the last little bit, and I think that kind of impacted their depth a little bit. You know how that goes, and had to put some people in some positions that they weren't necessarily used to being in. And again, that sometimes the best team doesn't always win.
Right, right.
And so
Been there, done that.
I think they were good enough to win it all this year. Now, how they come back, how they fill some of those gaps and that kind of thing for 2020 remains to be seen, obviously.
But what happens to a team like the Braves that go through 4 games in a playoff and it's close? It's now 2-2.
Hmm?
We're playing the pivotal 5th game, and you collapse like that. What is the cause? Is it pitching? Is it the defense?
It's yes. It's all of the above, and
But what happens in a span of a day and a half before that happens?
I don't really relish the idea of quoting Kurt Schilling, but I think he once said momentum is your next day's pitcher. I mean, and that's a great thing, and the awful thing about baseball, from one day to the next, it can change. It can turn like that. I mean, who you're sending out to the mound makes such a big difference. And I didn't have a good feeling about Mike Foltynewicz seeing that lineup seeing Mike Foltynewicz for a second time in such a short period of time, and he had just dealt his first time out against him in Game 2, I think it was. And I just think they kind of timed him up a little bit. And tough day, short day, tough day.
But baseball is you throw the ball, you hit the ball.
Well, he threw it and they hit it.
Yeah, there you go.
And they hit it a lot, and they hit it hard, you know.
And there's
So
no crying in baseball.
That's right.
Well, let's see what you think about this thought. That the most unpredictable thing about pitching is when somebody's going, like you said, against somebody in a short period of time, but also pitching on a day short rest.
Yeah.
absolutely.
I mean, not that it's always bad, but to me that's the most uncertain thing.
And I
Because
think
he was coming out off of a really outstanding performance.
And I think you have to know you're pitching to that,
Yeah.
you know, in that situation. There are some guys that can handle that, and there's some that can't. You know, they brought Dallas Keuchel back the day before on short rest, and this is a guy who historically has not pitched well on short rest, and they did it anyway, and they kind of set themselves up from the start to do it that way. I would have much rather seen, and I know a lot of Braves followers feel like Julio Teheran was really inconsistent, but I would have much preferred to have seen him start Game 4 on a very short leash and put Keuchel to Game 5.
Yeah.
And I think it might have changed something. It might not have, but and that's the beauty of it. We all get to second guess it for 6 to 7 months now.
Right, exactly. But the Braves did, to me, seem like when they were healthy, that they had the best young lineup they've had in maybe a decade.
You know, the way Dansby Swanson was hitting before he got hurt, you know, what Acuna did all year long. Ozzie Albies quietly had a great second season. I'm really hoping Freddie Freeman gets that elbow taken care of over the off season, but yeah, they've got some pieces in place that they can really be special, and hopefully what took place here in this postseason will kind of galvanize them mentally and emotionally, and kind of sometimes you need that push.
Right. Yeah.
You know, I was talking to Jason Hoth after the Franklin County game, and he was talking about the 09 team that y'all recognized at halftime, and he said it's one of the most favorite teams that he's had an opportunity to be involved with, because those guys took that 2008 season, and when he said this, I had to go back and look at what happened in 2008, but he said those guys coming off that 2008 season said, we're not doing this again.
Exactly.
And didn't. So, you know, you can make something good out of something bad.
Right.
Hopefully that'll be the case with the Braves.
Right. Absolutely.
All right. We'll see.
We will.
Acuna, what was it? Is it youth or is it mental with him?
I think it's youth. I think it's he's a very talented individual, and
Does he let that go to his head?
I don't think he lets it go to his head. I just think sometimes he gets overcome with the moment sometimes. And you know, he had a situation back during the regular season where he kind of styled a ball that he thought was out, and it wasn't, and they wound up pulling him out of the ball game. And I think Snitker would have pulled him out of Game 1 if he could have. I think from a depth standpoint, he didn't feel comfortable doing so. But you know, I think it's something that he has to grow out of. I think it's something that he will grow out of, because his talent is too great for that to be a limitation. I think he'll have people in his ear over this off season, and
will other players sit down and talk to him and say, "Look, guy, this is the way we got to do this"?
I think other players will. I think older players will. I think former players will. I think a lot of folks are going to be in his ear over this off season, and I think you'll see a more focused Ronald Acuna Jr. in 2020, and I think you're still going to see him styling some balls because that's his personality.
Yeah.
But I think they're going to be no doubters. I think he will kind of refine his discernment of whether a ball is out or not, you know. But he can hit them where there's no doubt, and he has. And you know, part of as I've read social media, as I do a lot, too much, over the past few days, you know, there is some question as to whether baseball turned the juice down in these balls over this postseason, because there are people that watch a lot of ball that say that there have been a lot of balls that would have been out of ballparks in June, July, August that have not been out of ballparks in October.
Is that due to the ball manufacturers,
Yes.
the way that they're putting the balls together?
Apparently.
Is that is that Major League Baseball calling up the Rawlings people or the Wilson people saying, "Hey guys, take a little off of these balls, whatever you're putting in"?
I don't know what the machinations are that result in that, but apparently this year's ball during the regular season had a little bit more life to it than in seasons past, and I don't know if some kind of way they turned it down some for the postseason. I mean, I always thought a ball was a ball, but apparently people that know this stuff are saying otherwise. So it'll be interesting to watch this postseason progress. You know,
is that a question that maybe sports writers need to be asking Major League Baseball?
They may not get the answer to it.
yeah.
But what I'm saying is, if that is true, then is that not a question that the commissioner ought to answer?
Rob Manfred should be
Yeah.
having to answer that, definitely. Yeah. Yeah. So again, I think it'll be a storyline, and it'll probably be more of a storyline once we get to the World Series, once those two teams and everybody's eyes are on that. And I think you're going to see that storyline come up. So we'll see.
All right. It'll be fun to watch.
It will.
Speaking of high school football, every week you do a show with Chris Yao,
I do.
and you guys talk basically what used to be the old District 8 football. And, of course, you bring in Summit, Spring Hill, Mount Pleasant, whomever you may be talking about.
Right.
Promote your show.
Sports Night. Chris Yao is the editor of the Spring Hill Advertiser News. I'm the sports editor of the Columbia Daily Herald. We cover most sports in Murray County, and so we get together, and it comes on Tuesday nights. You can find it on YouTube. You can find it on our Facebook pages, both the Advertiser News and the Daily Herald. We have a Twitter account at SportsNightTN, and Tuesday nights at 6:30 we talk about Murray County football pretty much. Like you said, Columbia Central, Spring Hill, Zion Christian, Mount Pleasant, Columbia Academy, and we also, because the Advertiser News circulates in southern Williamson County, we also pick up Independence and Summit. But it's about a half hour. We review last week's games and talk about the upcoming games, and we try not to expose ourselves too greatly. Because if
In
we
other
talk,
words, they do wear clothes.
no. If we talk too much, somebody may figure out how little we know. So we try not to do that. But
We snuck in Lindsey Nelson Stadium's press box a couple of 3 weeks ago, and it was neat. It was neat to be up there and watch the show.
shot it out the press box
Yeah, shot it out
window.
the press
Nice
box
little
window.
backdrop there.
Yeah.
It's nice to be in the historic Lindsey Nelson Stadium and the Marion Wilhoit press box. You know, it's
It was
fun.
a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Was.
Yeah. So
And it was fun to watch the sun go down, and it got dark in behind behind everybody. Because,
kind of a time lapse kind of thing.
When we first started, you could see the tunnel, you could see the sign back there, but it finally.
By the time it was over, you couldn't see a
See
thing.
anything, yeah.
Last home game we had was against Winchester. Got a little chippy
It did get a little chippy.
at the end.
I was a little surprised at that.
I was a lot surprised at that.
Yeah. But it also got a little tight at the end too, because
Yes, it
I mean
did.
Central looked like they had it under control, and then all of a sudden, Franklin County fumbles a kickoff return, recovers their own fumble, and takes it to the house. I mean, how often do you see that?
Not very.
One time too many for Coach Hoth, I imagine.
That's true.
But yeah, good ball game for Central though, I think, and I think it was a nice win for them to be able to go into fall break and the open date off of a victory. I think that's got to be. I can't imagine having to sit 2 weeks on a loss.
Yep, that is tough, no doubt.
But was that a corner turner for them?
Ask me Friday night.
That's true. That's true.
I think they're going to have their hands full Friday night with Paige.
And
That's just me personally.
and it being homecoming.
You
love
already
homecoming,
got
don't
you? Oh, yeah.
distractions
Yeah.
there.
Well, Lincoln County proved that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, their homecoming was a disaster for them, with Columbia Central coming in and stomping the mud out of them.
They played really well down there. I was really happy to see that.
And that's hard to do in the pit.
It's not an easy place to play at all.
The
and
best thing about the pit is the ribeye sandwich.
no doubt.
I'm telling you, that's
Hey.
the only good thing about the pit.
Hey, I had it 2 weeks in a row because I went down the week before when Spring Hill played down
Oh,
there.
okay.
So,
All right.
little pregame dinner there, you know.
But that was a big victory for Central.
I think so,
down
especially
in
when
the
you go
pit
back and
and-
look at
yeah.
the way they lost down there last year, 23-22, on a touchdown pass that wasn't called. Kid got a foot down. I think he got 2 feet down, and they called him out being out of bounds out the back of the end zone, and they lost that one. So
there have not been many Central wins in the pit.
In the pit. there haven't been many wins by anybody other than
That's
Lincoln
true.
County in the
Yes,
pit.
they've
All-
done very well. Of course, they've got a great history overall completely, but at home they have really been outstanding.
I was really fortunate. My alma mater, Franklin High School, went down there one year and won, and back in another life, I was able to get down there and see that. But it really takes a special effort to go down there and win for a lot of reasons. I mean, it's a tough atmosphere. There are those that would say that you're playing against more than 11, but
I was going to say there's a 12th man on the field, maybe
13,
a 16th.
13, 14, yeah, but
About 17 men on one side.
but it's a tough place to play, and like Vance said, with the history, I mean, when you walk in there, it's officially Meadows Thompson Stadium for John Meadows and Lewis Thompson, both of whom have have state championships to their
They
name.
modeled
So.
that field after
After
Murray
Murray
County State
County,
field
yeah.
out here.
That makes sense.
And just to make the point how tough it is to win down there, 2010 state championship lost at
Yes,
at the pit.
Yeah.
yes, they did.
The 09 team won big at home, 10 lost down there, and then 11
that
won big
promoted
at home.
a quarterback change.
It
that
did.
game.
We did have a change. Sure
There you
did.
go.
Next week we found Matthew Markham, and the
Sure
rest,
did.
as they say,
Is history?
is history.
Yep.
Most of the history's right over there on that shelf.
Now, who did Matthew replace?
Hayden Tate. And
Who
Hayden Tate
became
was
a fantastic defensive player.
yes, they actually switched roles.
Oh, Matthew
Yeah.
was playing.
Matthew was playing strong safety, and
Yeah.
and Hayden went to strong safety, and Matthew came to
And
quarterback.
absolutely shined in the state championship.
Yeah, he did.
I tell you what,
yeah.
I've not seen too many guys sling it the way he did.
Yeah, his accuracy was just really
Well, and
outstanding.
on top of that, and Coach and Eddie will verify this, that kid could take a hit get up off the ground, shake off a little bit, says, "Is that the best you got?
Let's roll.
Let's go."
For a sophomore, just becoming the starter, those last whatever it was, I think 8 games, he really played outstanding to be a sophomore. No, I mean, really, there was, of course, we had to play well to win through those games anyway, but the efficiency was just outstanding. Matthew, I think, threw 1 interception in those 8 games. And there were no significant turnovers.
I believe that was his first pass that he threw was an interception.
May have been. I don't remember that now.
He had a lot of people to take advantage of out on the edge, though, too.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is. Reminds me they're not on the same level, but of Alabama currently. Tuitt throws the ball accurately, but he's got outstanding receivers that really turn a ordinary play into big plays.
All right, I was going to cover that a little bit later, but since you've touched on that,
I'm sorry.
No. Since you've touched on that, how about an Oklahoma-Alabama national championship?
Oh, that would be great. That'd be a really good story for college
against
football.
Jalen.
Yeah,
Nick Saban would hate that because having to talk about Jalen for that period of time would just drive him nuts.
I think what's impressive about Jalen is that he keeps saying it almost in every interview, "We just got to get better. We just got to get better." Here they are winning by 55 to whatever, and we've got to get better. We've got to get better.
And I don't think he's just saying that. I don't think
either.
I don't think that's coach speak. I think he actually believes that.
I think he believes everything he says.
Yeah.
But I will say
And
this
never
about,
changes expression.
I will say this about Tua. Tua is the best I've ever seen at throwing a slant pass in college football. He has a knack for it, and he'll thread a needle, and his deep balls most time they're accurate too, but there's a time or two that he's overthrown them or think the receiver went the wrong direction or whatever, but. There was kind of a discussion of that in the last game, the receiver.
You're talking about Oklahoma, Alabama. I'm looking forward to LSU, Alabama.
That is going to be.
Well, I was going to bring that up here.
That's going to be a good game, too.
They're saying that's the one game that LSU may beat Alabama.
I sat and watched LSU Florida Saturday night with a longtime friend of mine, and we just said LSU Alabama. That's going to be out of this world. I just saw on somewhere yesterday, apparently LSU Florida was the highest rated college football game in terms of TV ratings in about 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
And
2
that was
undefeated.
What, Saturday night?
Yeah.
And that was the largest crowd that ever attended the game down there on Saturday night.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So they set records.
But
there.
I think that LSU Alabama game, the way Burrow is playing right now, and those receivers, and obviously Alabama and those receivers, and
I think LSU has a little better run game than Alabama too right now. Alabama's run game is not where it needs to be for what they're used to having. I'll put it that way.
we'll see. But I think once you get past that, then the question becomes, how does whoever loses it get to the college football playoff?
Right. Right.
Because I don't.
Well, the thing
unless Georgia rebounds some kind of way, or unless the SEC East representative wins the SEC championship, obviously whoever wins the West is going. Does a second SEC team get in there this time?
That'll be interesting to see.
It will be.
That has happened before, as we know, so it's possible, depending on who else ends up with one losses.
And the prognosticators are talking about Ohio State.
You always got to throw them in there.
Well,
you got to throw them in there.
Well, you have to pay attention to them because they're the Big
You
Ten.
can't keep out too right now is Notre Dame. They got this little.
Yes, you can. We're not talking about Notre Dame.
They got one of these little special gimmicks that they have. That if they're in the top 10, they get an automatic bid.
Those rankings will start to come out here in the next 2 or 3 weeks, I guess, and once that starts to shape up, Wisconsin's going to be in the mix probably. Obviously, Clemson. I mean, they're the defending national champion. I don't think they're as good as they have been. But I think you're going to have 5 or 6 teams playing for 4 spots. So, be fun to watch.
That Clemson North Carolina game, I think North Carolina exposed a lot about Clemson in that one. Of course, now Clemson rebounded the next game and won big, but
I think a lot of folks would have rather that Mac had kicked that extra point and extended it out. But
he should have.
Well,
but that's my feeling.
Hindsight's always 20/20. Let's ask the coach. What do you think of that situation when you're the underdog and you've got a chance to win a ball game right there? I mean, what is the rationale behind going for 2, going for the win right there versus kicking it and extending the game?
Well, there's a lot obviously that goes into it, but in just a general terms, if you're the underdog, and you're the underdog because you've got less depth, less playmakers, then it's a whole lot easier to say, let's put this on one play. We got to get 3 yards. We've got 2 outstanding players. Maybe we're going to put it in one of those 2 guys' hands and see what happens. If they're really outstanding, you got a lot of confidence to do something like that. If you're the best team, then you tend more, let's just make decisions that keeps lingering this thing out.
Be a little bit more conservative with
right,
it.
Because you're making calls to keep your team in the game, but till the moment comes where your better players make the difference. I always felt more comfortable if I've only got a couple of good guys to let it ride on that one play, as opposed to taking the chance of it coming out and it being 6 or 7 plays that you've got to win down the road, as opposed to that one play.
But that was what happened when the guy rolled the dice in Tullahoma in 2010 when he went for 2, and he was going for the win that night too.
John Olive.
And he was going for the win too.
And I told Dan sitting there when they come up to the ball, I said, they're going to fake it, and they're going to throw pass for a 2-point conversion.
So,
exactly
but the reason he did that was because Columbia Central could have played a 5th quarter if needed, because we were in such good condition that they were ready to go
one way or the other.
Olive knew that his team was gassed. They were out. They were done.
And
it was play.
I'm sure Coach Olive thought the same lines of what I was talking about. We had a few more athletes than he did, and the longer the game goes on, the more plays that the outcome's dictated by, the better chance you have with the better athletes.
Do you have specific 2-point plays?
Yes, you would always have, like everybody has they do it. How they do it is a little bit different, but I always had a couple of specific 2-point plays. In general term, most of the time it was 1 run, 1 pass, so you could make that decision if you wanted to throw. But also a third option was always the best run play for that night. If there was a play that I knew we were going to get 3 yards on, then we were going to run it. And that's how we made that decision. So I went first to decide if I wanted to run that best run play, and if not, it was a decision if you want to run a pass or a run. That were your specific 2-point plays.
I like having the opportunity to talk to coaches in non-post-game situations and try to pick their brains and that kind of thing, just to get a little insight into what the thought process might be. I like it.
See, I know exactly what he's talking about, because when you're that coach standing there in the post game, first of all, the game is a series of flashbacks, and you never know if you're going to get on the two flashbacks and be completely wrong about what you're talking about because you're associating two different things. And then the other thing, you're worried about the 60 kids that are running around that you're in charge of.
Yeah.
So I know,
and what they're doing, because
yes.
I tell you, I was down in Lincoln County and talking to Jason after that win, and one of the administrators from Lincoln County came over to him afterwards and was talking about some activity with the winning team that had taken place apparently that they weren't very happy with, and so yeah, you've got a lot going on as a coach in that post game situation. So I as a reporter, I try not to take up too much of your time, particularly after a loss, but after a win as well.
But my point was, from your point of view, you're trying to get a job done, and this guy's mind is somewhere bouncing off the wall.
It comes with the territory. You get used to it after a while.
It is much akin to flaming cat juggling.
Yes. But I've always enjoyed talking to Maurice. One of my favorite memories of the championship game was going in and talking to you in the underneath the stadium, in the media booth.
Yeah, that was one of those nights that you just, there's so much going on, and you don't really get all of it because you're in the moment of it, and I didn't know everything obviously, but you did, and that'd have been a long day.
Yeah, it was.
I understand that the score was what it was, but Eddie and I still attest that we shut out Hendersonville. They did not score that touchdown because they stepped out of bounds twice.
Oh, wow.
Oh, we saw it.
Also,
well, it was an incomplete pass to start with.
Yeah.
Officials ruled it a fumble. The guy who recovered it was already out of bounds.
Yeah.
And then he lateraled it to another guy who was out of bounds.
So just for the record,
it was a shutout.
It was a shutout.
There we go.
So says me.
There you go. Well,
there were several things that happened on that play, and the referees got every one of them wrong.
And normally I defend officials, but you're absolutely
right. Yeah, see, there you go.
They had there was three failures there.
Yeah. And, I mean, you can go back and look at the film on it.
Yeah, and
it's plain as day.
And it was the first play after halftime.
Yeah.
And I really, truly believe they just were not mentally focused when the game started back. And I can see how that happens. The game moves so fast. To me, the hardest job in athletics is to be, by my thinking, this is how I think about myself. If I was a 60-year-old out there trying to keep up with the pace of today's
16, 17,
game,
18
yes,
no way.
and trying to make calls while you're actually physically running, which you think about that's pretty difficult. You're running, your eyes are bouncing. And for me, I would be breathing real hard.
If you were breathing at all.
and I'm glad the play's over and I get to stop, and everybody in the stadium wants you to make a call at that point. So I feel for the difficulty, but there was failure of 3 times. It's on film.
Yep, it's there.
On that one play, which was.
Every time we play it back, we see it.
Because you're looking for it.
No, because it's obvious.
Oh wow!
It is
one of those things you could have taken a balloon full of yellow paint and not be more obvious than what these guys did not call.
I may have to find that.
I got a copy of it.
We'll have to share that.
Yeah, we'll have to share that. Matter of fact, we may bring it on the show.
There you go.
We'll play it back for you. But I got to say this. About a month ago, we went to Cumberland County High School up in Crossville. We did a show from up there, and those folks treated us like royalty. So thank you, Eric Ballou, head coach, and all the coaches and the cheerleaders and the students that were up there, and the players could not have been treated better by a great group of folks. So we got some got some new viewers to the show from that, and not getting any money from that, but that's okay. It actually has had more views than any show that we've had before.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
And more hits. So we'll go up there and do that again.
Absolutely. That's
So you're big in Crossville. Then,
Three.
Yeah, we're big in Crossville.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. So
They
thank
wouldn't
you.
recognize us if we walk down the street or
Well,
anything.
no. But thank you for the hospitality from all the folks in Crossville up there. It was great. It was fun.
They enjoyed having you, I know.
Yeah, we had a blast up there too, and it was nice because actually we had somebody help us carry our equipment out to the car.
Yeah.
You know.
So you didn't have to carry your own stuff?
No,
No.
it's like Major League Baseball, man. You didn't have
don't
to
have
carry
to-
your own stuff.
You don't have
It was
to
like
carry
being
your
in the
bags.
show. No, it's like being in the show.
Yeah. Treated like celebrities.
We were.
That is impressive because I was usually like, "Hey, Dan, grab my stuff too."
Yeah.
while you're out there." I'm impressed.
Yeah, we hauled the football equipment for a while.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, we did. Yep.
Sure
Yep,
did.
we did that.
Well, let me ask Maurice a question.
Uh-oh.
From that time.
Oh, no.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, I'm not used to
The
this.
coach asking
That's
the
right.
reporter.
Maurice on the hot seat.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you don't have to use names where you don't want to, but tell us about some of your interesting coaches interviews, and it could be college level. It doesn't have to be high school.
No, I'll tell you. I'll tell you some of the guys that I really have enjoyed. Guys, and there may be some ladies in there as well. But just thinking strictly football, some of the folks that I've really enjoyed dealing with. I mentioned Lewis Thompson down in Lincoln County. When I got to the Tennessean in 1990, I got there in February, and 1990 was the year that he won his first state championship down there. He won it again in '93. But that team, they had Kelly Holcomb, who went on and played at MTSU, played in the NFL. That kid was so tough.
He was good.
But they were a lot of fun to watch. But Louis, think of the Tennessean back in 1990 and think how far-ranging our coverage area was. And we did a lot on the phone.
Yeah.
A whole lot on the phone.
Sure.
And so anybody that returns a phone call
Right.
gets a plus in my
Right,
book.
sure.
But Lewis was so personable. He was always fun. He was always upbeat, and there was no fake about him. But I always enjoyed dealing with him. I've always enjoyed dealing with Kevin Creasy now at Oakland when he was at Trousdale. I really admire the job that Tony Brunetti has done at Pearl Cone from the standpoint that they send a lot of kids on to play college ball, and they're not all going to Power 5 schools.
Right.
If he's got a kid that can play at that level, like a Keyshawn Vaughn, he gets them there. But if he's got a kid that can play at a Bethel, he gets them there or anywhere in between. And the thing about it is, I think he's really built up a trust with college recruiters from top to bottom, because they know if this kid can only play at Bethel, he's not trying to sell him to North Carolina.
Right.
Yes. I
Right.
think he's done a great job of getting kids out of Nashville and getting them college degrees and getting them where they can go and play. And I think a lot of high school coaches could take a couple of pages out of his book along those lines. But
Well, as good as the prime rib sandwiches at Lincoln County, the food at Pearl Cone is phenomenal.
and the PA guy's almost as good as you.
Well, no, in some ways, he's better. He's entertaining.
Catfish Pender.
I'm telling you.
He's a real deal.
I got a story about that Miss James will have to tell you about at some point.
Okay. All right. But yeah, over the years, and I try not to do that kind of thing too often because there's probably somebody I'm going to forget.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But those are just three guys right off the top of my head that really jump out at me. And there's a lot of really good folks around here that I've had the good fortune to deal with or deal more with than I had before I got
Right,
down
sure.
here, and that's been a lot of fun. Pickle and lamb. are two really good guys, and part of that might just be my affinity for baseball. But I like both those guys. I think they do a really good job on the field, and they're accessible. Like I said, I mean, being able to reach somebody in what I do is there's a lot to be said.
But there again, what you do, the mark of a good reporter and the mark of a good person that covers from the sidelines, you're invisible.
Well, but apparently I'm not, because Bill Draper always seems to be able to get a picture of me on the sideline.
That's Draper. Draper's doing that on purpose.
Yeah, he's been coming around this year.
But what I'm saying is, anybody who knows you knows that you're invisible on the sidelines because you're never in anybody's way.
That's it's not about me, and I try not.
That's right.
I try my hardest not to, because the last thing I want to do is mess around and get somebody a 5-yard penalty for some kind of sideline infraction or something like that. But yeah, I try to stay out of the way. If I stay out of the way, then nobody's saying anything to me, and I can do what I need to do.
You're just a little stealthy.
I don't know that me and stealth has ever been used together. But seriously, I mean, it's something that I work at. I don't try to be right on the line of scrimmage, for one thing. I'm either behind it or ahead of it, ideally ahead of it, maybe 8 to 10 yards. And I've gotten to the point where anything coming toward me on the sidelines, I'm bailing because I'm too old to get hit. But, when you've done it for a while, you kind of figure out things. I'm probably, I wouldn't say better, but maybe a little bit more knowledgeable about how to work a sideline now than I was when I first got into this, just because, been around.
Well, now I know when to text him and not to.
There you go.
I know that now, because he'll get a text when he's not doing something, and I know about when that is. So I've got a little bit better at that.
Look at you.
UT. Let's cover that real quick.
What's to cover? They play Alabama Saturday. It shouldn't take very long.
Well, I hope their hotel room's close to the hospital.
Yeah. That's what Boots said once when they were going to go play Florida State.
I remember that.
Yeah. Somebody asked him on his show, said, "Where you guys staying?" He said, "I don't know, someplace close to a hospital, I hope."
One of the funniest things from that Florida State game, and he and I have become good friends. Joe Campbell scored a touchdown down there, and he gave him the tomahawk. It was fun while it lasted, but there's a clip of it out there on YouTube somewhere, and he owns up to it.
If my memory serves me correctly, MTSU was winning the first half. And then the second half come about.
Yeah, I think Boots has a line about that, about trying to sneak out of there at halftime.
And then they woke up.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Like that Japanese admiral said after the bombing of Pearl Harbor. I think we woke the sleeping giant.
Yeah. Well, and
what do you think score wise for UT Alabama?
I don't have a real good feel for the score. I think Alabama's going to win. I don't think it'll be that particularly close score-wise at the end. But I think there'll be 2 or 3 stretches during the game where
UT's going to do some decent things. Yeah, I mean, if Brian Maurer, number 18, if he plays, I think he's really developed a connection, a rapport with Jawan Jennings and with Marquez Callaway and those other receivers, and I think they're going to have an opportunity to make some plays. And I think Jeremy Pruitt realizes, hey, we're not going to win this ball game.
Yeah.
But they're looking for some improvement, and to get that guy some snaps as a true freshman in that environment against that team can't do anything but make him better for games that they do have a chance to win.
But Pruitt being in that environment before can set him up to what to expect.
Mm-hmm. And again, with him being a true freshman, they've got some guys around there that have been down there that can help.
Right.
And it's not just a coach telling you what it's going to be about. There are some players that can help him and kind of school him up a little bit on what to expect. Now, obviously, you can't really get ready for that kind of thing unless you're in it. Yeah. But at the same time, some folks can kind of help him along and say, don't get rattled when this happens, and it will. Right. But like I said, I think the biggest thing they're looking for is just something that they can build on to take with them
a little more
for a Missouri, for a Kentucky, for that kind of thing, where they actually do have a shot.
All right, now last couple of minutes we'll deal with the dumpster fire that is the Tennessee Titans.
I feel about that about like I did about you asking me about the Braves.
and Dan, I know you and I have had this conversation, and we've always said that we didn't think Mariota was the answer up there,
but there again, you've got an offensive line that can't protect the quarterback.
They can't block nobody.
And that's where it all starts.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah,
defensively, they've been playing well enough to be in every game.
And there's my question that I want to ask you. When you've got one unit performing as well as that defense is, and you've got another unit performing as poorly as that offense is, how do you keep the locker room from becoming offense-defense?
Well, it can be really tough, obviously. It's a difficult thing.
Especially when it's so obvious.
Yes. Excuse me. The easiest answer to solving that problem is have mature people there, regardless of what level it is, professional or down to high school. Mature for your age, I guess. Mm-hmm. Then you have to do things to really focus on, recognizing what things are going well, say for the defensive side of the ball for the Titans, and then push, the offense to improve in the areas that they need to. But so I think it's definitely as crucial on the high school level as getting those guys on the outstanding unit to be supportive of those guys that are coming along. It's a lot easier in high school from the perspective. Usually those guys are at least playing some both ways. So that the type situation the Titans in, most high schools are not in that two-platoon type situation there to that extent. But it is very difficult if you don't have mature people.
Well, even they said today, the coach said that it's not just a quarterback problem.
Right.
But they're changing the quarterback.
Yeah, but the problem is Mariota was making some throws the other day he should have completed.
Yeah.
Or he should have thrown completely out of bounds.
Exactly.
But no, he was throwing some balls in the ground with open receivers and that kind of thing.
Or throwing Henry on a little screen pass. So
but it's so hard to predict the future anyway. But
it is.
I was thinking about that earlier when we were talking about Jalen Hurts. The last season he was the starter at Alabama. He did really struggle throwing the ball with consistency the last 3 or 4 games.
Mm-hmm.
But did he hear the footsteps of Tua behind him?
Evidently so, because it was kind of coming on before that championship game. So it's kind of a similar type situation. So.
Well, he seems to have ironed some things out since he's gotten to Norman.
And we know he was a humble, high character guy when he went there. But I really think he really feels appreciative to be in this opportunity, and he's taking full advantage of it. I think that's a big part of, hey, we got to get better, get better, focusing on what's ahead instead of what's behind.
Well,
it's really a really fun thing to watch a young guy, have that kind of focus.
Well, it's like they said in country music, hard to be humble when you're perfect in every way.
I don't know that he necessarily is, but he's figured out how to be humble, and in this day and time, it's kind of refreshing to see.
It is.
Yes,
it
it
really
is.
And I wondered about that in watching UT's number 18 as he was injured. As
Brian.
as he was injured and watching, he was that same type of interaction, support. Who was somebody else that got benched last week? And they went out. Oh, it was the other quarterback. Garantano went out on the field to get him. Mariota. Well, I can't talk.
Mariota
Was supportive when he was. I wonder how much of that came from Hurts's story, if any at all. I'm sure all those people are high quality people, but I just wonder if Jalen Hurts has had that big of an impact. Has he changed
the landscape?
Yes. And how people react to that situation. There's not a whole lot of examples of that in recent years before Hurts come along and did those things.
It's a good question.
I bet it did. Had a lot to do with it.
That's an interesting insight there.
I mean, it's not that I'm coming in to save this program, because this program does not need to be saved.
Right.
I'm here to enhance this program, and if I can do that, then we'll be successful.
Or to certainly not have it drop off.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah.
It's just so many times the trend before Jalen Hurts was, at the very least, just be removed, passive to the situation, or outright throw a fit sometimes, as we know from the highlights.
Now, he may do that behind the stadium
I
somewhere.
don't think so.
I don't think so either. But if you're the type person that needs to go somewhere and vent by yourself or with one or two supportive
I'm not
people,
like that.
So be it.
Did you ever deal with those? Did you have very many of those that vented in a way that you wouldn't really appreciate?
That happened occasionally, but quite honestly, it was not over disappointment in their role, or it was disappointment in themselves, which is really a lot harder to deal with.
Right.
Because as a coach, your first reaction for most people, it was for me to be anger about somebody showing out, if you want to call it that. But when they're doing it over their own mistake, their own problem, then you got to throw that away quickly.
What about those Baloo boys today?
Well, that's exactly. Bryant threw his helmet one time, and I reacted totally 100% as a coach, and it was over his own fumble. It was not, it wasn't anything that he wasn't reacting because he was mad at somebody other than himself, and I regret that as one of the big mistakes I made, not being more of a dad than a father in that moment. Because that's
Say,
all.
look, son, that cost us blank.
No, it really didn't. It was on the sidelines. There was no penalty. It wasn't the proper.
No, I'm talking about the helmet cost X
Yeah,
number
well,
of dollars.
yeah, okay. Yeah, good point. I hadn't even thought about that.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Okay. Guys, this has been a good show. Maurice, thank you for coming in.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Anytime, man.
Yeah.
Anytime. We love
Glad
having
I was
you.
able to get by.
Yeah, and then we'll see you tomorrow night as we induct you.
HOF.
So he's going to start sounding his name like that. Vance Ballou, HOF.
There you go. He can do that.
He can. Well, not yet. Not yet. He will be able to by 10 o'clock tomorrow night.
There we go.
Hopefully earlier than that.
Yeah, hopefully much earlier than that. If I've got everything written out the way it ought to be.
There we go.
All right, so for everybody on the show, we are out of here.